Hey gamers, welcome to the Part-Time Gamers Club where we game part-time but support gaming all the time. For those of you tuning back in, make sure to drop a like and subscribe. And if it's your first time here, welcome to the crew. I'm Gio, alongside me is Gerard. And today we're discussing the possibility of Square Enix returning to turn-based. Who would have thought? Gerard, does that excite you?
I mean, you already know it does. You already know. But I
It's
think
about time.
honestly, yes. Cause like, and this is gonna hit like, I don't want to say close to home, but like very deep in like my gamer brain,
Mhm,
because like it's like some of my favorite games of all time have been turn based.
mhm.
Um,
I agree.
And just recently, Expedition 33, like bringing up the success and being like basically a wake up call to Square Enix, but like other people, other companies as well.
Mhm,
We, as a gaming culture, were raised on turn based games for like many reasons that turn-based games exist, and it's mostly because the capabilities weren't there. Um,
mhm,
but we have like made our entire culture around like turn-based thing because now there is a division between turn-based games and real-time games,
mhm,
and it's always been kind of a divisive group. Like either you're one or the other. You can't be something in between that doesn't exist.
mhm.
Um, at least not to my knowledge. I enjoyed like Final Fantasies, obviously. Dragon Quest is another one. Uh, you have
Chrono
like
Trigger.
Chrono Trigger, Star Ocean,
Mhm.
Persona, like all of these games.
Tails.
Oh yeah, the Tales of games.
Mhm,
Um, there are like fundamentally something about turn-based games that just click with gamers. At least a I don't want to say minority because like turn-based games I feel like have a large popularity. Like it's not
they
even
do.
like the JRPG people as well because like there are turn-based board games that you can play online. I say board games,
Mhm.
but turn-based games like the Civ games. That's turn-based. That's hugely popular.
You think of any card game. Card games are turn based.
Were you talking about? Oh, you're talking about like online card
Like
games.
playing cards. Yeah, playing card games. Yeah, that's turn based. You do your turn, the other person goes their turn. But I feel like so for me, turn based I feel like is more I don't want to say it's more so, but it I always felt like turn based games were challenging and you had to be strategic. Obviously there's times where you're so strong and it doesn't really matter and stuff like that when you're at a certain point of the game, but I
That's for
think
JRPGs. That's
yeah,
right.
but I think it would be in their best interest to go back to what they used to do. And because, like, when we think of Square Enix, we think of a Final Fantasy title, we think of turn based. I don't know, like you said back in the day, due to limitations and stuff, but we always had hack and slash type games. And that's what I feel like the new Final Fantasies have become hack and slash. So I'm like, yeah, it's fun, but it kind of gets boring and repetitive after a while. And yes, a turn based can get repetitive, but I always just felt a stronger sense of challenge and difficulty with a turn based game, especially in the RPG realm.
uh, I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
When you say hack and slash back then,
Mm-hmm.
are you referring to the God games like Ninja Gaiden or Devil May Cry or
Yeah, more like the Devil May Cry, the even God of War is a hack and slash in a sense too.
the old
Uh,
God of Wars?
yeah, correct.
Yeah.
I think of like the combo making games. You know what I mean?
Okay, yeah. You call it the boring and repetitive? That's a hot take. That's why I was like, you talking about these godly
no,
games in
no,
that manner?
no, because let me tell you something. First off, Devil May Cry is one of my
Okay.
favorite series.
How are you
but
gonna say? Okay.
but I'm saying if I had to choose overall, like if you told me I had to get rid of one series: Devil May Cry or Final Fantasy. I promise you. I'm sorry, Devil May Cry. I love you, but you're not getting voted over Final Fantasy. It's not happening.
That's only because
Especially if we're
Final
talking about
Fantasy
the
VIII.
first 12. You know what I mean? Even crap, you can give me 7 through 10, and I'll still be ecstatic.
I was gonna say first 14, even though 13,
13,
1,
yeah, 13.
13 1 and 2 did okay.
13 1. Let's just go with 13 1. Just 13
A lot,
period.
exactly. A lot of 13-2 people. There are a lot of people that like 13-2 more than 13-1. But 13-3 we can all agree on. Lightning Return sucks. I will die on that hill. Anyway,
I didn't like 13-2 because they didn't have lightning. I was like, why can't I play lightning?
Oh, 13-2. I was about to say,
Yeah.
I was like, Lightning Returns was only lightning.
Yeah, no, that's different.
But yeah, like there are a lot of games out there that I particularly enjoyed, and turn-based games have that place in my heart. There's very few things that have place in my heart, and turn-based games takes the majority of them. So when Square Enix decided to make the next Final Fantasy, and I say next Final Fantasy, I'm talking about Final Fantasy 15 specifically. They were like, let's go to the hack and slash route. Let's do that. I picked it up still, and I was like, let me try it. Disliked it, and I was like, I'm just gonna finish this game, and then I'm gonna put it down. And then Final Fantasy 16 comes out, and they're like, it's the exact same thing, but like with different story. I was like, nope, I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't. Just to find out later that the recent expansion of Dawn Trail, aka Final Fantasy 14's release of Dawn Trail, has a side story that's the exact same, plot as Final Fantasy 16. It's hilarious.
It's recycled and reused. Got it. But that's honestly why I haven't played a Final Fantasy title in a while, man. I didn't pick up 15. I picked up 15. I didn't get into it. I couldn't get into it. I didn't finish it because, like you, I didn't like it, but I couldn't force myself through it. 16, once I saw it was a wannabe Devil May Cry, I said, nah, I'm good. I'm good. I think the problem with Square Enix is you don't take your historic franchise and try to change it to something else when it was the best at what it was in that category. When you thought about JRPGs, your mind automatically went to Final Fantasy. That is a staple in turn-based RPG games. And when you change your identity in a sense, right? That's the identity, or was at one point, was turn-based for Final Fantasy. And they tried to change the identity of their franchise, their main franchise, and it's like, why? Just create another franchise. If you want to test that route, you want to go a Capcom route, that's fine. You could have another game, but start a new series. Just start a new series. Leave Final Fantasy at what it was. And I think they've heard a lot of people's feedback, especially after Clair Obscur, because we're not the only ones that have said it. Clearly, thousands and millions of other people have said the same thing we said. Final Fantasy, can you go back to turn-based, please? Like, this is what we want. This is what your true fans want.
I come to a realization that if the next Final Fantasy that comes out is 17 and it is turn-based, it's going to be $80.
It's going to be the best-selling Final Fantasy in the last decade.
Not at $80.
I guarantee you.
I
guarantee it. You know why? Because they've starved us for so long. I think I'd be willing to. We talked about this. You and I would be willing to pay $80 for this script.
I would pay $80, but there are some people that we saw the backlash that Randy's comment. They refuse an $80 price tag no matter the game.
I don't think Square Enix. Well, we know Square Enix position right now. They've been struggling with cash as that, and because they've had some failures. So I don't think they would test that water unless the whole industry at that point is $80. But I don't even think that's going to happen, because every game that seems to be trying to touch that price point is already getting backlash. And Nintendo hasn't been doing so hot with that $80 price point themselves.
Nintendo has a much worse problem than just $80 games.
But the Switch 2 has sold well, though. It has sold well.
That's what upsets me. More. It's because the Switch 2 sells well, and there are people whose accounts are getting banned unruly, unlawfully. Like their entire fucking console, not bricked. We haven't heard anything, but it's close. They're like, I'm gonna ban your account now, and everything you bought on that account gone, simply gone.
That's wild.
And it's just like some of them are like, oh, it's because they downloaded a modding tool so that they can play old versions of their games, and then
Don't do that.
It's Nintendo. Don't do that. Nintendo will fucking like. It shows that not only do they have this in their repertoire, they're willing to do it at the drop of a dime, because there are people who are, as I said before, unlawfully getting their accounts banned because they go. I saw a post. I think it was on Reddit, so I'm gonna take this with a grain of salt. But a guy wiped his Switch 2, right? Or not? Yeah, he wiped his Switch 2, because he didn't like it. Sold it, went back to his Switch 1, and even after formatting it, the person who bought his Switch 2 put on that hacking tool, that modding tool, and it banned his account. And he's like, how the fuck did it get banned? I formatted it. My account's not even on the console.
They're like, nah, we sold it to you originally. We had you. We had the serial number. We know who we went to.
Like,
getting punished too.
It's crazy.
But let's not get caught up in that. But
I mean, that's an important thing because Nintendo's the other
we could talk about
RPG
Nintendo.
people.
We could talk about them another day. But I'm kind of happy that Claire Obscure did so well, and I think what made Square Enix really think about this, and whoever the shareholder is that called them out on it, kudos to you, buddy. Whoever's been paying attention out of these shareholders, saying, "Hey, did you see Claire Obscure? That they had no backing. They're not even. That's a brand new franchise. It's a brand new game."
I honestly think it wasn't a single person. I think honestly, it may have been the reason
majority
for that meeting.
Oh yeah, could be right.
I think it was literally like, hey, we need to discuss this because literally a turn-based game comes out, does well, outsells a majority of our things that we're selling, and we've been for a long time staying away from it because we didn't think the want was there. There was a market there. So this is
or the market was dying, I guess they thought.
Yeah, the market was dying or things like that. So this is obviously like maybe we were wrong in our analysis and that
maybe.
But like you got to think about it this way. Square Enix needs to like they can't just jump on the bandwagon because as we saw from the news article, it is not confirmed. They're only thinking about it. And I think what their thought process is that they're going to investigate the market again because they probably are saying, hey, this did well. Was it because it was turn-based or was it because the game itself is good? Okay? Because
I think it's a combination.
But that's what they got to figure out because if it's just like if it's one more than the other, they need to like take that with a grain of salt.
I get what you're saying, but hear me out and let's see if you agree with me. Final Fantasy, if it wanted to be, is the market. They are the standard when they want to be the standard of turn-based JRPGs. They are the identity of JRPGs.
I would disagree after 10 because
I'm speaking historically. Yeah, but
yes.
You saw after 10 is when they started to go that route of starting to implement the real time, and little by little it started steering away from traditional Final Fantasy feel.
Are we gonna argue that with 12 though? 12 was all the Final Fantasy stuff still.
Yeah, but 12 was still probably the last real good seller. Besides, 13 was still decent.
13 was decent. 13.2 did numbers too, even though we all know that your critiques and there's a lot of people who were critiquing 13.2. I think 13.3 is when it started going off the deep end because that's the first time we got an action game. And
Correct.
I
Started messing with
again, I don't know. So apparently people must have loved it because Final Fantasy 15 was also another action game. So
Mhm.
maybe I need to look at this because maybe Lightning Returns sold well more than probably 13.2 that they thought that it was changing.
I don't know. I don't think so. I think for me, I wasn't really. I don't think I played much of 12, to be honest. I don't know why. I didn't get into that one. I don't know what was going on at that time, but I didn't play it much. I tried it a little bit. Steve liked it a lot, so I knew about it. But uh, 13 was the last real Final Fantasy that I played, and like you said, I didn't mind the real time aspects. I didn't mind what they added into it. I just think when they tried to go the full action route, like you said, is when I was like, this ain't Final Fantasy. To me, this hasn't been Final Fantasy. It just hasn't. Even though I know a lot of people love Final Fantasy 14, the MMO, and that's cool that they created the world of an MMO for Final Fantasy. But when I think of Final Fantasy, I don't think about MMO and I don't think about Devil May Cry type play style. I think of what I grew up with playing turn based. That's what I think of because that was Final Fantasy. The first 10, at least 12. 11 was an attempt at MMO that didn't go so
It's
hot.
still ongoing. And I don't want to say it's not so hot. The problem with 11 is simply that they took the grindy aspect of Final Fantasy and put it in because everything is real time based.
Mm-hmm.
Like fucking world bosses spawn 24 hours after they're maybe even a weekly. Like it's ridiculous. Like, oh, we need to be at 5 a.m. online or we'll miss the boss.
Oh yeah. That's they did that in World of Warcraft a little bit with certain things too, but not to that extreme per se. Probably why World of Warcraft lasted so long. But Final Fantasy, man, I really hope they're really serious about going back because I feel like, and I'm being honest, maybe I'm I'm on my own on this on a limb, but I feel like if they went back to turn based, that would be the best selling Final Fantasy game in a very long time, and I don't think it'll be close. I think they do easily 15, 20 million copies. Even at $80, I'm even going to go on that far. Even though you said you're like, I don't know about 80, we would. But Gerard, there's a lot of Final Fantasy fans that have been starving for that style. You can't tell me there's not a fan base for them when they were selling 20 million copies like every title before. You know what I mean?
I'm gonna check Final Fantasy 10's or 12's count because for clarity's sake and for everyone to know, Final Fantasy 13 Lightning Returns actually made its returns and met sales expectations for Square Enix. Okay. Now, with that being said, it did receive mixed reviews.
Which one?
Final Fantasy Lightning Returns. Lightning Returns did make them
How much did it sell?
In about a week, it became their top 20 sales of all time. Or in PS3 software sales. In top 20 in over a week. Selling in its first week, it sold over $250,000. And then September 2014, and it came out on February. It came out in February. So about like 6 months later, so half a year later, they sold over 11 million copies. So within a year, they sold in over 11 million.
And you got to think about it too. When Final Fantasy was at its height, that wasn't the height of gaming. Gaming's way bigger now. There's way more gamers now than before. So like that's what I say. Like I feel like they would easily do the numbers if they went back to turn-based. Final Fantasy 10, 2 combined have sold almost 21 million copies.
of which Final Fantasy X itself is like 10 million, and then Final Fantasy X2 is
Probably.
like 2.
Yeah. It might be like 15 million to this 5. But yeah, same difference. But I think the market's there, man. And I think Square Enix is just I feel like maybe the shareholders like, we've probably been missing out on this market because you thought for some reason this was a dying market.
I was gonna say Final Fantasy 12 was critically acclaimed and received a perfect score in PlayStation magazine.
And it's turn-based.
Yeah. So.
And how much did that sell? That's the question.
Sales sold over 1.7 million in its first week, almost equaling the sales of Final Fantasy X.
In its first week?
In its first week, yes.
How many sales?
1.7 million.
Yeah, I think 10 was like a little over 2 in its first week. That's what I'm saying, though, Gerard. Back then, and they were only doing console. They were only doing PS2 exclusive. It wasn't on every console now. You got to think about that too. And if it's on PC, because now they've disconnected from that exclusivity, whatever. I don't know why I struggle with saying that word, but
exclusivity.
Yeah, I don't know. It's one of those words that just get tongue tied. But think about it. If they're on PC right away from the jump, Steam. Just think of the numbers Steam would help them do. I think the market's there, man. I think part of what's hurt their sales is that they stayed exclusive. I think that's been a big determining factor.
I think Square Enix. I'm thinking about this now, and this may come out of nowhere. So give me a second to just explain myself. I think if they manage to make the next Final Fantasy not only turn-based, but $60, they'd sell it everywhere.
Yeah, you wishing for a lot because
no,
first off,
at $70 they hit Final Fantasy players and hardcore gamers. All right.
Yes,
they might not get new, and I say new as in like people who don't play video games into video games. Yes.
Yep. Or even play that genre.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. If they sell it for less than the industry average at $16, I do think they break that mold. I do think they get people like, all right, this is cheaper than the game I would get. Maybe I'll try it out now. Maybe I'll try turn-based, see what everyone's talking about.
Let me ask you something, Jordan. I want your honest opinion. How many more copies do you think Clair Obscur would have sold if its title was Final Fantasy?
You're also talking about Clair Obscur being also, it was a $50 game. And it was on sale to $40. I don't think a Final Fantasy... I don't think Final Fantasy would ever drop that low. If it was a Final Fantasy game for $45, everyone who has a computer would get it.
But listen to me. Let's say it was just industry norm, $70. But it has the name Final Fantasy. You can charge $70 for that game. And being honest, what do you think the numbers would have been? You're not telling me it doesn't beat the remakes, Final Fantasy VII. There's no way you don't. Think it beat those.
It does beat those because the remakes, or maybe not the first remake, the second Rebirth definitely beats.
I think it beats both easy.
I don't. The remake was actually pretty popular.
It didn't sell as much as you think it did.
Maybe it didn't. Maybe I'm wrong. But I think you're putting Clair Obscur is a good game. If you say Final Fantasy and it looks like Clair Obscur, it doesn't make sense to me because then we have a disconnect of oh, why is this Final Fantasy game really weird looking and have weird mechanics and things like that?
Different development team.
Well, yeah, but that's what I'm saying. If you call it Final Fantasy, it also has a visual and or theme or vibe. There's something I don't have it's hard to explain.
No, I get what you're saying, but you're overthinking it. What I'm saying is
If you put the tag Final Fantasy,
Yeah, the
on
franchise
Claire,
behind it. Yeah. If it was Clair Obscur was it was a Final Fantasy game, how much more numbers do you think it would have done just because of that name alone?
at $70 or at the price point, it was so
$70.
much.
$70, just normal price point. I think it sells at least 5-6 million.
More than what it originally has.
No, I'm saying at least 6 million right off the in the first couple months, like when Clair Obscur hit 3.3. I think they're at 6 million with a Final Fantasy name tag.
I don't think double. I don't think double.
I think so.
I think at
Even
least 1 or more 2 mil. But I don't.
So you think like 4 or 5 million?
Yeah, because like Final Fantasy again has that brand awareness as well. Just like I'm going to like this, and at its best, it was like turn based. So it's like you're gonna compare it to the old ones, in that regard, rather than like the new remake. You're gonna or like Rebirth specifically. You're gonna compare it to remake. You're gonna compare it to 15, possibly 16, and maybe Lightning Returns. But there's no other Final Fantasy to compare it to. So if you do the turn-based one, you're going to have to compare it to the old ones. So it needs to be good on top of that. And that we're talking about the same quality that Square Enix is putting out now. So if it really depends. Like I don't know if people trust Final Fantasy that much. Or not Final
right
Fantasy,
now.
Square Enix. They don't trust Square Enix.
Right now.
Even if they like, oh, we're gonna do a turn-based one. People are like, yay! And then in the back of their mind, they're gonna be like, is it going to be good though? Because you've still been giving me, even though you've been giving me something that I'm not asking for. Not only are you doing that, but you're also not making them good. And that's gonna be that. The second part is like, it also has to be good, you know.
But that's what I'm saying. Just the quality of Clair Obscur, just it didn't have that big franchise name on it, right? That's what I'm saying. Like, I think with that big franchise name, you got to think of the fan base that Square Enix has already developed over the last 30, 40 years. And how many players have stopped because, like you and I, we have no appeal to that style when it's labeled Final Fantasy. Now, if it was a different game, a different little franchise that they started up, sure, we'll join it. We'll support it because, Square Enix has made good games for us before in the past. But when you change your main franchise identity, I feel like that's where they went wrong. And I'm hoping they return back. That is when the first time I could say that if I see a gaming article say Final Fantasy returns to form, I would actually believe it. If it's actually turn-based. And it would actually be used in the right format.
So, here are my thoughts. I have 2 thoughts. Thought number 1. Rebirth, which is the second Final Fantasy, actually did really well. Sales-wise.
How much it do?
Did 260 million the first week. And then...
To what?
260... Or, excuse me, not 260 million. 260,000. 260,000. A.k.a. $250,000. More than $250,000.
That's not good.
What are you talking about? It's the exact same numbers as fucking Final Fantasy 13. 13.
But you're still comparing 2 different time frames, Gerard. That's why I'm saying there's more gamers today. Gaming is more accessible today. There's a bigger community today than back then. You can't compare it.
It was the most sold, and this is actually just a problem. It was the highest selling new release in Japan that year during its first week.
What, Final Fantasy Rebirth?
Rebirth.
Or remake?
Yeah. No, Rebirth. Rebirth. Yes, the worst one. The worst one was the highest.
The sales fell off hard.
The highest
they
selling.
Haven't done that much after that. They haven't hit much numbers after that. I mean, not to support the budget they've been spending.
I'm
not saying they haven't. I mean, it played good. It felt good, the remake.
I do think here's the problem with Square Enix. I think they have made their company bigger than what they used to be when they were making those turn-based games. So,
what do you mean by bigger? Make them bigger. What do you mean?
Okay, so here's my thought. Final Fantasy X came out. Square Enix. And by the way, like I think Square Enix SquareSoft turned into Square Enix around Final Fantasy 9 era, 10 era.
I think it was it was either 9 or 10 was the first one I saw Enix in it.
Yeah, and then we start switching a little bit from like 10 onward, a little bit, as you said, to like different styles, because these are like the combination of two different companies. So what I'm thinking is they weren't as big back then when they made those games. They were small enough where like they got a lot of money from those games and were just able to expand and make like better versions. But now they're kind of really big, so they don't have like that small focused team, or they have a lot of like cooks
It's not
in the
passion
kitchen.
projects anymore.
Yeah. So at this point, I'm thinking just like it's not, and this is gonna be like what I would call heresy. It's not the same company. It's not. It's not. Square Enix is not the Square Enix back then. We should expect, even if they do make a turn-based game, take it with a grain of salt, because it might still not be good.
I guess you're right. I mean, but I'd still trust Square Enix enough that if they did go back that route, they're gonna take their time to make sure it is, because the way they're gonna look at it is, we need this Final Fantasy to be a big seller. We need it to be. So we need to take our time with it. We need to make sure we do it right. And we need to show once again to the world that we're the best at making JRPGs.
So do you, okay. I'm gonna leave one off. I'm gonna leave one more question. Okay. This is the last question. Do you think if they release Final Fantasy 17 and it's a turn-based game, do you think we'll get another turn-based game like Awakening, aka more turn-based games coming out? And we'll make the assumption that Final Fantasy 17 sells well.
So if they do it and it is received well and it does well, like I said, I feel like they are the market. So I feel like they will rejuvenate that market and it'll expand. You'll get more Claire Obscure type games. You'll get more development teams wanting to go that route when they see that market is there. And the one company that could really help solidify and show that, yeah, this market is still there and growing is Final Fantasy. Now, don't get me wrong, Claire Obscure showed, hey, there's still a market for this. But is it a growing market? That's the question. And I think that's the reality. I don't think it was a dying market. I think maybe it was a steady market, and maybe that's why Square Enix maybe said, nah, we have to switch something up, because they noticed the action route growing, right? There was a lot of action games coming out at that time and really doing well. I get it. But at the same time, I'm like, you could still build up upon turn-based. There's still audiences for that, and there's still people that enjoy those style of games. And I still think even the newer generations would appreciate those games. I don't think it's a generation thing. I think though that genre transcends generations because it is a challenging style of game. So it just has to be done right. Like you said, it has to be done right. If you don't make it good, it's gonna bomb, because it's not one of those style of genres that really like captivate you like that, because it's more of a mental thing. That style of genre. You know what I mean? So for me, like you said, it has to be made well. But I feel like if Final Fantasy does it and does it well, you'll see more publishing companies and development teams doing projects for turn-based RPGs again. More so than you see now. I'm not saying there isn't little companies and stuff like that, but I think the bigger companies will get back into it again.
All right. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you for watching, and make sure you leave a like and comment down below on your thoughts on Final Fantasy 17, whether or not it'll be a turn-based game. And also, if it's not turn-based, will you riot? We'll see you guys next time.
Peace.
Thank you for watching this episode of the Part-Time Gamers Podcast. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. And follow us on our other social platforms on TikTok, Instagram, and Discord. Links for those will be provided in the description. Thank you again. We will see you on the next episode of the podcast. And make sure you make some time for video games. Peace.